influence involves the changes in behavior influenced by the actions of other people. Social influence can come about for a variety of reasons, on a continuum from mere suggestion to, in the more severe form, well, to torture. How does social influence work? Well, first, we must become aware of a difference between ourselves and the values or behaviors of other people. There are a great many studies of social influence that demonstrate how the presence of others can cause us to change our attitudes or actions. Studies show that people eat more when dining with others than, I'm talking about dining out here, so they eat more in the company of others than they do when they're alone. They also run faster when others are running with them. There's even some interesting research on social influence among animals with similar results to those of human studies. Probably one of the most interesting aspects of social influence is the pressure for conformity. Conformity is a process by which an individual's opinion or behavior moves toward the norms of the group. In a classic study by Solomon Asch, 7 people were shown cards with 3 lines drawn on them. Here's an example. So, they were shown the lines, and then they were asked to select the line among the 3 that matched the standard line. Here's the standard. So, there's no question as to the comparison. This has to be easy, right? Wrong. You see, Ash enlisted the cooperation of 6 of the 7 participants in the experiment. On the first card, the 6 respond correctly. They identify the lines of the same length. So the 7th person, who is the only real subject in the experiment, well, the 7th person answers correctly, in agreement with the others. But on the next card, 4 of the cooperating participants choose an incorrect answer, but they're in agreement. So the problem for the subject is whether to conform to the opinion of the peer group, even though the answer is in conflict with the answer that the subject knows to be correct. So, what do you think happened? Well, subjects who were tested alone made errors in answers fewer than 1% of the time. This was the control group. But of those tested in groups of 7, let's see, 75% yielded at least once to conform to a group answer that was clearly incorrect. And on average, subjects conformed to the group in about 37% of the critical trials. This means that they were bringing their behavior into agreement with group norms, in spite of what they were seeing. Later, Ash manipulated the size of the control group, the experimental group, to see whether group size would affect pressure, and it did, but probably less than you might expect. Groups of 4 demonstrated about the same results as groups of 8. Interestingly enough, a unanimous agreement by the group was more important than the number. In other words, a unanimous opinion by 3 exerted more pressure to conform than a majority of 7 with a dissenting opinion in a group of 8. Similar experiments have been performed in various countries among diverse cultural groups with comparable results. Of course, people in cultures that emphasize group cooperation tended to be more willing to conform. But remember that many of the original studies were done in the United States, where there's a high value placed on individualism. In an interesting variation on the study, Abrams found that conformity is especially strong when the group is selected from among those people that the subject clearly identifies with, either because they have characteristics in common or they know each other and interact in a peer group outside of the experimental situation. So what does all of this mean in the real world? Well, since group members can influence one another to conform to the opinion of the group decisions of a group may be called into question. What about decisions by political committees or parliaments? What about juries who are charged with convicting or acquitting an accused defendant? Clearly, social influence will play a part in these critical group decisions. Also interesting is the fact that after a decision is made by a group, there is a tendency to solidify. And by that I mean that the group becomes even more convinced of the validity of the group opinion. Um, this may happen because individual group members who strongly support the group tend to be more popular with the group members,